Many of you are getting ready to file your 2015 tax return.
Yeah, and there's some things you should probably keep in mind, help you minimize your chances of being, Lord help you, audited. Here to help with that is our friend CPA Crystal Faulkner from MCM CPAs and Advisors. Crystal, good to see you again.
Thank you.
I just she probably needs oxygen because things are getting a little busy
Oh, yes.
right now. But as we do get ready to file those tax returns here in 2015, for 2015, I should say, what do we need to know about audits?
Well, the first thing, Bob, we need to know is audits are rare. Most of us will never have an audit. And even if you do get that lucky letter in the mail, it doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. Many times it's just sample random selections for audits. So that's the first thing. But if there are some things that you can do to minimize the chances of being audited.
Okay.
All right. What would make someone more likely to be audited?
Well, first of all, simple errors. Things like just excluding income that has been reported to the IRS. You'll usually get a letter in the mail. That's just a simple correspondence audit typically. The biggest types of audits are when you leave when deductions are in excess of what the IRS uses for sample guidelines. And so if your deductions are over the top, for example, compared to what the IRS thinks they should be for your income bracket, that's going to generate a notice.
Sure.
All right, any specific red flags we should be watching out for too as we kind of get right down to it here?
Absolutely, there are. So, for example, most people wouldn't think that making too much money is a bad thing, but the IRS thinks that when you do make more than $200,000, statistically, you're more likely to get an audit.
Okay.
And then large charitable contributions is another thing that typically will spawn an audit. And for example, if you take a contribution deduction for, say, $50,000, but your income's about $100,000, that's living a little beyond your means, and so that might generate an audit.
Okay. What about red flags we should look for?
Well, a big red flag is if you claim a dependent on your tax return that somebody else already has, that will definitely make the IRS contact you. You can't do that. Wrong social security numbers, that kind of thing. And you know, the world is becoming a much smaller place. If you have assets in other countries, or if you are in the United States and you have assets in other countries, make sure you include all those foreign forms that the IRS requires, because there's huge penalties. And as I said, if you don't include the income on your return that the IRS has received from whoever's paid you, again, that's definitely going to be a red flag.
So all those Swiss bank accounts you got.
Man, I work about that. You know, they're starting to close them all anyway. So because these people are funneling information to the IRS as well.
They are. They're absolutely. The IRS is getting this information, and there are a lot of people here in this country who have assets around the world.
Sure.
And they will absolutely, the penalties are thousands of dollars. It's just informational, but if you don't include them, it's a big problem.
You know, and this isn't something we plan to talk about much today, but you sort of mentioned it, and I just want to kind of drive the point home. IRS, if they contact you, it's always going to be through the mail, right? Because we hear about all this fraud stuff. People are calling up, pretending to be the IRS and that kind of thing.
Yes, and I've actually had clients who've had this, and often it's elderly people.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you will never get a threatening call from the IRS as their first contact. They will always contact you through the mail. And if you do get a letter in the mail, don't put it in the drawer and pretend it's going to go away, because I promise it will not. It just gets to be a bigger problem.
Crystal, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate it, and I hope the next couple weeks are okay.